I'm DJ.
And I'm Andrew.
And welcome to One Shot's Tavern,
a TTRPG podcast where we seek out new ways to tell your stories through different systems and games. And today we are talking to Andy Licht of Andy Makes Games and graphic designer and game designer over at Heart of the Unicorn. Andy is independent game designer, illustrator that works out of Olympia, Washington, and has a couple successful Kickstarters under her belt. Thank you so much for being with us, Andy. I am beyond excited to talk about this stuff today.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, DJ. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for having me on.
So
yeah, we've been wanting to have you on for a little while now.
Yeah, early on, I remember
chaos.
talking to DJ and being like, okay, I've seen this creator. They've been popping up. I found Heart of the Unicorn through like TikTok, and I saw some of the art on Kickstarter, I think, when Between Clouds came out, and I was like, this is so interesting. We need to talk to this person. I want to just jump right into something that I've already said to DJ and Will that blows my mind. Back in April of 2022, you launched your first Kickstarter, from my knowledge, and that was Soulbound. And then 2 months later, you launched Between Clouds, both of which were wildly successful. So my very first question is, how did you do two that quickly?
Is that okay? Well, I don't want to fact check you, and it does feel like a quick turnaround.
Oh, that's fine.
In my lived life, in my experience from where I was, and the internet might be different. I think it was maybe a year between the two of them.
I understand why I got that wrong. No, that's totally fine. It was, I read an update date, not a launch date when I was looking at the stuff. That makes more sense.
The updates will get you. But if I may, emotionally, it was 2 months between the two games.
Yes.
And part of that is because the Kickstarter for Between Clouds, here's a little insider secret, is I actually was pretty broke at the time and focused on everything but the game. And that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I made all of the art and all of the marketing materials, and I built the entire Kickstarter. And so what I created during that time was the pitch, not the game. And you can make one of those things much quicker than the other. So I finished shipping out Soulbound, and I was like, all right, I'm doing another pitch. So it was a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, so we both did a zine back in February, which is both our first projects. We both did our own in parallel, DJ and I. And so it's been like 6 months. And we're getting ready to fulfill, and it's like been the most wild whirlwind of our lives because we did it at the same time as launching the podcast and everything else. And I cannot imagine doing two big Kickstarters on that level that quickly.
Kickstarters are an emotional roller coaster. It's the highest high, and then fulfillment comes, and you're thinking, oh my God, what did I do? Yeah.
Well, and then all along the way, you're working on your project, and you're like, I have 6 ideas for new games. And I want to work on those, not what I currently have to work on and deliver.
Oh, yes.
We haven't totally done that.
No.
No, I do have, I feel like, a good practice of I kind of force myself to not write down my game design ideas for a couple months so that I can pitch it better and then like lose the bad ideas and just like have to keep mulling it over in my mind rather than codifying it too early on. But I've written stuff that should have waited.
See, I'm writing all things so I can go back and look at the bad ideas and confirm, yes, that was terrible. I am right.
That's awesome. Well,
Absolutely.
So today we're focusing mostly in on Between Clouds. We're going to be demoing it. You'll be able to watch the entirety of our game demo. I am so excited about this game. It is absolutely gorgeous. So first off, knowing that you did all the art on this as an illustrator myself, holy cow, this is an incredible looking book. And as you know, when it comes to like marketing anything, that was the first thing that drew me to this book. So with that aside, can you jump into more of the game mechanics, the design ethos, and the heart of why you wanted to create Between Clouds?
Absolutely. So the desire to create Between Clouds came actually from a very simple place. that I now realize is something I took for granted at the time and could be solved a million different ways. But my particular frustration initially was session zero. I always found it frustrating in games how we had to introduce our characters and kind of artificially create some cause, some reason for them all to be together. So I thought, what if there were just some unifying force that the players were attached to from the very beginning, this singular mascot that all the characters orbit around, and then we could skip the session zero. We could skip all of the backstory and the meeting at a tavern and getting a quest, and we're just together already as a unit. And then I was watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's a sky bison, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it was just kind of a radical change. I was also finding myself as a queer individual at the time, and I was just really excited to celebrate things like found family and life. I just wanted to make something that felt hopeful and life affirming. Funny because my previous project Soulbound was like this dark fantasy, so it was maybe even a bit of an internal switch for myself. But that was my goal initially, is to create something where the players all felt connected to each other and this singular thing that was drawing them together.
That's such a great way to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
DJ runs games every single week and he starts up new campaigns all the time. And so he has to find new ways to tie a bunch of random people together. I don't do it on that level, but I've always felt that. It's such a tension point of early on and making sure there's motivations.
My last few games has been a cult has kidnapped someone that you love.
Yeah. Yes.
You all need to go get those people back. There we go. And it works.
Or
it's-
you meet at the most recent one I heard is you meet at a funeral, and you
Ooh,
all
love
know the deceased person in some way. So then you're coming together like, how did
I
we know
love
this
that.
individual? Is it a
I
murder
did-
mystery?
I stole it from the Shadowrun video game Shadowrun Returns, but I've used it in a couple different games over the years. And I just call it Dead Man's Switch. And so it's basically the structure of you all get like an email or whatever the delivery method, and it's essentially blackmail, right? It's like, go find my killer or I'm going to release your horrible secret from when we did a job and thing. And so it's a way to like build the secret in with the players and figure out why they're tied to this individual. That's
Right.
making them go do a job together. And so you're finding out that everybody else at the table has this dark secret that's tied to this person. They're all being blackmailed. That's one of my favorite ones.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, I've heard similar things of like writing rumors that you've heard
Yeah.
about the other players and passing it around. Yeah, I
So
love
fun.
learning things about the characters as we go.
So for Between Clouds, talk about
Mhm.
that for me a little bit. I understand that there's the Kieran, and then we are referred to as the player characters as symbiotes. So what
Correct.
is that gathering together and building your party, if you will, around a Kieran like?
Yeah, so there is a game called Dream Askew, Dream Apart by Avery Alder. And it is the start of the belonging outside belonging system for games like Wander Home or, Our Haunt, the cute, cozy ghost game. And I encountered that like halfway through my Between Clouds production, and it informed so much of the process of creating your symbiotes and your Kieran and exploring what your life together is like. Avery Alder has this term which is called idle dreaming. And this is a thing that a lot of role playing games fail to recognize, which is the transition point between making characters and actually playing the game. And I think in a lot of traditional role playing games, there's this kind of tough, like a jolting point where you're like, okay, we've made our characters and now we're starting. Oh God, we're going in, like I'm going to role play here. Here we go. And it's kind of terrifying. It totally can be. And so what the idle dreaming is this kind of gradual transition period from one to the next. And you'll see when we play that I tried my hardest to implement that in Between Clouds by having players, by facilitating conversations around the saddle and what the symbiote's life is like aboard the saddle, the little rituals of daily life, the ways that they interact with each other, asking questions about how the symbiotes interact with their Kirin, creating parts of the Kirin that are reflected on the symbiotes. This thing called a core mutation, some like biological characteristic that the characters in the Kirin all share. So yeah, the beautiful part of the process for me is that before we even start playing, there are a number of steps that facilitate those conversations and ask us to explore what daily life might be like for the symbiotes aboard the Kirin. So when we finally do start playing, you almost don't realize that we've begun because you're talking about it. And then you think, well, okay, I'm already here. Maybe this is the next step.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
thanks. Yeah, that's the process in brief.
So, again, to that, you're speaking about some of the mechanical influences and whatnot. What drew you to Year Zero engine and utilizing some of those rules, and what did you kind of find support when building your mechanics?
Yeah, this is such a funny. The Year Zero is always a funny thing for Between Clouds because it actually started out of ignorance. And this is Free League. If you're listening, no shade, no tea, no shade. But it's a fine system. It's an okay system. It began because I was playing Tales from the Loop at the time,
Mm-hmm.
the like kids on bikes adjacent game by Free League. And I just liked the system. I just thought it was simple. It had a clear pass fail mechanic. It only required a 6-sided dice pool. There were a number of things about it that felt very straightforward to me. And I think the holy grail of role playing game design for many people, for most people, is creating something that feels instantly approachable or like rules light being the buzzword. So the reason I picked it as simple as that,
Yeah.
but I will say, over the course of development, there were other influences. Like I said, Avery Alder's Dream Askew, Dream Apart, and then also certain influences from John Harper's Blades in the Dark. There were other games that I came across and became fascinated with during the development, and those all got baked in there too. So it's
Yeah,
kind of a weird, when we play, you'll see it's kind of a weird hybrid system, but
very
I think it
cool.
actually comes together to support the found family storytelling in a great way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was working on my game and like finding it, like I had been familiar with Blades in the Dark, but I specifically started digging into Band of Blades, and that really
Mm.
started to sink. I did a game that's very Ender's Game esque, and
Hmm.
so it was very I saw some of the mechanics that were there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this facilitates like an army, like collective party mentality mechanic, and I wanted to like kind of at least like have it rhyme with that and borrow some of the inspiration. And it was like as I was kind of throwing myself deeper into the greater world of TTRPGs and finding new things, I was finding the other people have come up with some of these ideas before. Wow.
Uh-huh. Right.
And
Hey,
I'd
right.
share the game with someone, they'd be like, "Oh, this is so much like whatever." And I'm like, "Wow, yeah, that's definitely an inspiration." What was that name again?
Mm.
Uh,
Where can I look it up?
where can I
Right.
read about this book?
No, it's amazing though how many of the problems have actually already been solved by other people. Like
Yeah,
if you want
right.
to get good at making games, like just go read other games, you know? It's incredible. It's really incredible. Yeah.
Well, with that, let's hop into this.
We hope you're enjoying our conversation with Andy Licht. We are about to jump into a couple clips from our actual play with her. If you want to enjoy the full version, there will be a separate video for the entirety of our actual play, both on YouTube and in audio form here in the feed. So we hope you enjoy.
Between Clouds is a game about a family of mutants and their beloved flying beast, working to preserve fragile ecosystems among the sky. They will travel from one location to the next, rescuing precious wildlife, sabotaging industrialists, and finding acceptance in each other's company. The world is post-collapse, set in a time when humans have fled into the skies and away from a poisonous surface below. Now, old world technology lies in disrepair, requiring constant maintenance to be used. This is no grim apocalypse, however. Green natural life grows wherever it can find purchase. The world is also biopunk, and through biology, all things are possible. Mutated animals, titanic trees, and flying sea life are all commonplace. In this world, our players will encounter sweeping vistas, campfire dinners, swashbuckling sword fights, storms, villains, jailbreaks, schemes, and supernatural abilities.
Storyteller. One player must facilitate the game by assuming the role of storyteller, typically the person who brought this game to the group. They will guide the player's journey across Imperia, presenting them with new scenes and challenges along the way. They take on the role of the Kirin itself.
Kirin, Between Clouds, is centered around immense flying mammals known as Kirin. They are creatures of mythical proportions and masters of the natural world, feared by humans and hunted for their resources. The storyteller must create their own Kirin, consulting the group as they do.
Symbiotes. Players assume the role of symbiotes, colorful outcasts who have forged their symbiotic links with the Kirin. They are shunned by society, often labeled as miscreants and anarchists. Through their Kirin, they play and gain access to biological abilities that will give them an edge against poachers and industrialists.
The family. The symbiotes and their Kirin together create a found family, simply referred to as the family, throughout. They share a biological connection as well as a spiritual bond. In a world that fears symbiotes and Kirin, they are each other's home. So, the very first thing we'll do, actually, is we will create our Kirin together, since this will act as the nucleus for our family. The Kirin is created, we could pick, but, I like the idea that this Kirin is finding the symbiotes out in the world, and they don't necessarily get to choose. They're these biological anomalies, so it's not truly this animal, but this is the way that the Kirin presents. I am the twin Kirin, heaven and earth. Two goat-like Kirin, one cautious, one protective. I think Earth is often visible next to or near the family, and heaven, on the other hand, is typically distant, flying nearby, and maybe only spotted by like the illumination that's coming off of heaven's body. I think they both have these long, kind of winding fur-colored tails, and their horns are these long, twisting, gnarled things that look like they have been around for decades, for ages.
Rivet is you see like the way they clothe themselves is just like this almost clerical vestment of of a leather like work trouser kind of thing going on. It's like lots of drapery of worn greasy leather and like bits of fabric patching different points. And like you don't normally see the additional limbs per se because they're kind of like kept like this at all times. But when they're needed, they're engaged in further use. Otherwise, the mushrooms have taken over a good portion of the visible like skin. In general, it is pretty rampant, almost to where it's like a little bit insectoidy. And I've got like a very long staff like wrench with rusty bits around where I hold it.
I am playing calamari, or Mari for
Ooh,
short.
love
The
it.
fisher whose gender is squid. He, they. He has
Mhm.
a squid beak. Also, for his power, it is so the tendrils. Two of them are wrapped around the waist, kind of like just as almost a belt. The others are, of course, the arms that Mari uses.
And Mari's tentacles also kind of have these constellation style patterns.
Oh yeah, yep.
on
The
them.
coloring is very
Perfect.
like from the arms, just very purple with like white speckles.
Very cool. And what was Mari's trinket?
Oh, Mari's trinket is a harpoon gun.
Awesome.
Because that looked fun.
Moverna has one eye. one eye is missing, and there's a scar that is formed over Super Edgelord. But Mo is a
Awesome.
very chipper person. Pronouns are he, they. Mo's skin is almost looks like a nebula of smoky greens and yellows with like flecks of maybe stars that are being birthed. Mo is wearing
Cool.
a chrome puffy North Face style jacket with a whole bunch of duct tape on it. Like the thing is torn to shreds, but it's his favorite, and that's what he wears. Same thing for the pants. Neon green parachute pants, kind of in the same vein, just barely holding on.
I love that so much. Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, Mo. So that is our family. We have Mo Verna, Calamari or Mari, and Rivet. I love it. Great. So with that, we kind of see the camera pan up and away from this ramen shop and our two Kirin. And we kind of get a view of the tower, the little balcony that y'all are on, and the sunset beyond it. And that is where we will wrap up our session.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
We hope you enjoyed this sneak peek of our actual play with Andi Licht playing Between Clouds. If you want to enjoy the rest, the full playthrough, if you're in podcast form, there will be a separate episode of that playthrough in its entirety. As well as here on YouTube, you can go ahead and check the description below, the link to the little section there, and enjoy the full playthrough. We've included tons of the incredible art from this game in the playthrough, and I hope you all enjoy Between Clouds with Andi Licht. Back to our little post-game interview.
Andy, fantastic. I very much enjoyed all of that. There's rules light games where everything is imagination, and then there's things with a little bit more structure. And this lies in a really nice spot between those for me, where there's enough rules to kind of help me in a way to think within a box, but it's a really big box. Whereas like somebody who is more used to running or playing a game, or doing the full on like imagination side, where they're making up everything they're doing, would also feel comfortable in it. And I love the whimsy.
Yeah,
And
the
just
genre
the-
and tone
yeah.
comes through really quickly. I mean, just as you go through
Yes.
the book. And then something that I've been loving, and I kind of found my way towards this style of play through a couple things. Like we played our first GM-less game a while back with The Zone. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mhm.
It's like a play yourself to death
Oh, yeah.
kind of game. And that was so
Yep.
rules light, but it also was to even your point about like Will during our game, just like that opportunity to tee things up for the other people and kind of all share that load of telling the story, rather than it just being like how I grew up with D&D of like, it's the storyteller and they are the one telling the story, the DM is, and I'm living in their world. Like instead of that is so much more like, I don't know, what do you think? And it is my like favorite way to play now. And like I began employing that in my early playtests of my game Battle School, of just like as I would generate encounters, like there's a lot of like similarity of how I run my game to how you ran the kind of generation of encounters and the things that we were going up against and the way you were asking us questions. It was like very I don't know, it made me very happy because it was like, oh, this is how I was writing my game to play in this conversational kind of form of pulling things out of players beyond what is normally expected of them, of just like, no, but like, what do you picture this thing, and you're defining this part of the reality, and you're defining this relationship with everyone else. And, our listeners are familiar with Battle School, but for you, it's like the whole point of that system was to build teamwork. I was tired of, especially with combat in a lot of games, I was tired of like getting into combat, and everybody's got their own plan, and then some wizard drops fireball, and the bard's like, dang it, I wanted to talk to them, and it's like there's all these different plans going on, and it's not working together. And so that was why I built the system the way I did. But the other thing was like I wanted the table not just in those moments, but I want the table to actually be facilitating the story together so much more. So this was just like right up my alley for how, not just like how the game plays, but like how it facilitates a style. And I think it calls the player up, like to the point that I was saying of just like the player just being more of a passive explorer of the story, but much more integrated into the telling of it. And I really loved that.
Yay. Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much, Andrew and DJ. Appreciate it. I think for me, the difference is the scope of narrative authority that's given to the players, which is what y'all were talking about. And in most trad RPGs, a player's scope is limited to specifically their character, and that's it. You're controlling your character, and then you're in this big scary world, right? And me, the DM, I'm going to tell you how it goes. Whereas here, you are responsible for your character, but there are, as you all referenced and noted, there are these prompting moments where you're actually going outside of your character and telling us about other things. You're telling us about the saddle and how that looks, or you're telling us about details of a location that you're visiting, and we're building this together. So yeah, there are a lot of like, I think for me, the easiest way to do that and give players more authority is just to think, what else can I give them that isn't their character? You know, like where else can they help out? They don't need to tell the whole story, but like, how can I ask questions of them and have them contribute?
And I think that it also opens the door to players. Like I'll have like it probably is surprising that Will doesn't really run a lot of games. He's been a player in my games for years and years and years. I want him to run more games because he's an incredible storyteller. But games like this help facilitate those moments where he gets to dip his toes more into that narrative authority and gets to express himself so much more. And I think makes him more comfortable with the idea of taking the reins of a storyteller in other games and stuff. And I think that that's huge because so many people feel stuck in that. Oh, well, I'd never DM. I'd never run a game. I could play. But it's like, no, actually here you can play in a slightly larger pool than what you're used to.
Right.
It's
but
like a soft launch.
So yes, I love that. Yeah. It's like, I love a larger pool as well. You can play, but without all of the responsibility that comes with being a game master that I think scares a lot of people off. My mentor, Ross Kalman, also talks about having a spectrum of player impulses. Things on that spectrum being like, one player impulse could be, I want to develop my character and their backstory. But another player impulse could be, I want to do world building. And I think what's nice about having a balance is players will want different things and they can do a bit of both. Like if you want to do your cozy little character study, you have room for that. But if you want to contribute in a broader way, you're still getting those opportunities. So.
Now I gotta ask, you've done a couple games here. You're working at Heart of the Deernicorn, always working on new projects, I'm assuming. Can you tell us about what you're working on next? And it's more, if you can't talk about a specific project, if you could talk about even just like the design space that you're trying to play in and develop.
Absolutely, yes. So this is a long ways out. However, this is also the first time I've mentioned this anywhere on the internet. So
Exclusive.
if you're hearing it, whoa, that was in sync. So this is the exclusive reveal. Is my next project, date TBD, but sometime next year for Kickstarter and tax reasons, is a game. It's kind of a deviation from the tone of this game in particular, but it is a surrealist, medicalist, kind of body horror style game and a map drawing game, which is about living in an unknowable body. So for like the last year, I've been dealing with eczema or atopic dermatitis. it's weird. I'm like, why are these things happening to me? I don't have control over it. And as I hear from more and more people, it's really fascinating to me how we don't know about our bodies. And yet
Right.
we live in them. I didn't sign up for this, but here I am.
But I'm stuck
and I
here in
have all
this
these
flesh mech. So let's see what we do with that.
flash mech. And so the game, oh my gosh, Andrew, I love that you said that. And so the game is actually about players charting the daily life of living inside a flesh mech. It's this 5-story tall Titan.
Yes.
This thing designed of like, it's this biomechanical construct, and your consciousness is stuck inside it. And we're doing map
Wow.
drawing to chart all of the weird, unexpected things that are happening to this body
That's
that
amazing.
you're trapped in. The
That's
game is
so
called
Fascinating.
Born of Spite and Eczema, but that should be out either next year or maybe the year after that, depending.
What was the name? What
Um,
was going to be the title of it?
Entropic.
Entropic. All right.
After entropy of the body.
Yeah.
And the game will be loosely based on Avery Alder's The Quiet Year. So we're kind of mapping out a year in the
Yeah.
life of this body and
Yeah.
seeing what takes place, how it's affected. So
Fascinating.
Um,
Aside from the high concept, what
Mhm.
on the more like mechanical side are you thinking
Totally.
of playing with that's maybe different than what you've done before?
Totally. Yeah. Ross talks a lot about component first design, or actually like toy first design. And my previous 2 games have both been out of books, right? So it's a rule book, and then the components that you're actually interacting with are character sheets.
Yeah.
So there's dice, paper, and pencils. For this particular game, I really want to emphasize a more like on the table component heavy design. And what that means is having a spiral bound book that is meant to lay flat and to have the art be a bit more interactive. So we're really working out of the book. And then to have a map drawing component. I don't know if either of you have played The Quiet Year, but it's this beautiful
You guys screen
GM-less
print it in your studio, don't you?
We manufacture part of The Quiet
Okay,
Year at
right.
Deer and a Corn.
Yeah.
But what I like, so it's a map drawing game, and you're charting the year, a year in the life of a post-apocalyptic community. But what I like is that players are drawing. We're all contributing and adding little details to this map. And although it might look like rubbish when you're done, to everyone playing the game,
Right.
it's like this like visual record of everything that has happened. You can look at those mountains over there and be like, that's where the raiders were. You can look at this crash
Yeah.
plane and be like, and that's where we got this technology. And so you kind of have this, this like relic, this treasure at the end of it where you're like, look at this thing we made. We all got together and drew a big thing. So I'm really trying to borrow like the tactile,
Yeah.
playful elements of drawing and like chart making for this next game.
That's incredible. I love that.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. And who knows, maybe it'll be totally different by the time it comes out, but that is my
So it goes.
anticipation.
Yeah,
And maybe
right.
when that's done, I'd love to come back here and we could
Yeah,
try it out.
definitely.
So
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. It is always a huge pleasure to talk to new creators about the games that they love and design, and again, always facilitating different types of play and genre. And I mean, I said it when we were recording. We were 10 minutes in. We weren't even, I don't even know where we were. You said it was a blurry line between character creation and starting the game, but somewhere in
And
there,
then it
I was
just
just
happened.
like, yes. Because I was so latched onto a genre and a feeling that I hadn't played in yet in tabletop, and that's always fun because there's definitely systems where you play them, you're like, okay, that did this thing just slightly different, cool, but like this
Mhm.
definitely evoked its own thing, and I really enjoyed getting to play it. So thank you so much for hanging
Yeah.
out with us.
Seriously.
of course, for the record, I did note the precise moment where we switched from character creation to role play, and I was tapping my fingers together like a villain when it happened. I went, ha 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 ha. It worked. So, but yeah, thank you all for playing with me so much. I had an absolute blast.
Is there anything you'd
Awesome.
like to invite our listeners to check out? We'll include any links and stuff in the description here.
Totally, yeah. If you are looking to pick up a copy of Between Clouds, you can go to my website, which is andymakes.games. Yes, I got the .games URL. That's awesome. If I don't have it there, if you're having difficulty, you can also buy it through Deernicorn Distro on heartofthedeernicorn.com. It's available there as well. You can check out my previous game, Soulbound, Dark Industrial Fantasy. It's a bit more like Monster Hunter meets Bloodborne, and a bit more steampunk, you could say, also a bit crunchier, but that still has an active community, and it's just like this really fun, crunchy modular game. Yeah, and last but not least, you can find me on social media at Andy Makes Games on Instagram and Twitter.com. I will not call it X. And lastly, if you want, you can follow my TikTok account, which is at AlunaVayne, ALUNA_VAYNE. That's my music persona and my stage name, but I do also post game content there from time to time.
Amazing.
And that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much. And for everybody on the internet, this has been a pleasure, and hope you guys enjoyed. We will be recording a bunch more games just like this coming up soon here. We are very excited, and we'll share more about that very soon. DJ, you want to run us out?
Yeah, make sure you check out oneshotstavern.com, where you can follow all of our socials, as well as check out our Patreon and hire me for some games if you'd like at Start Playing Games. Also, if you want to start your own podcast, we have a link there. You can click that and we get a little kickback from it. Or if you want to play a game on Start Playing Games and you haven't yet, click on our link. That will take you to sign up. And if you spend $10, we get $10. And that goes back to helping the show. But until next time, we'll see you here at One Shot's Tavern.